Gap, just to state right up front, is no joke. I mean, this is huge. It's a little overwhelming at times, especially in the last month or so. Our group managed to pace ourselves fairly well, so we weren't hit as badly as some other groups were. But Gap is one of those things where you don't see it coming for a couple of months, and suddenly it's on top of you, and you got to deal with it all at once. So, I mean, I guess what advice I could offer is really start thinking about it way ahead of time and do your legwork in the very beginning, because that's all going to pay off at the end. The company that we did our project with was an Australian company that made auto parts, and there were two things right there that none of us in my group knew anything about: Australia and auto parts. So what do? The faculty here do a pretty good job of keeping us on track and helping us along on how to do our research. When we were over there, we were able to use a lot of the tools that we learned here to do our research and really implement a lot of the ideas that we had going into this project, so that by the time we came back, we could make sense of all the things that we learned over there. But yeah, make no mistake, this thing is a huge project, and 6 months might sound like a long time, but it's not. I mean, it'll jump all over you before you know it.
That's true. So Gap is basically the culmination of everything you've learned at Anderson put in practice. You end up doing marketing, you do financial statement analysis, you present financial statements, you do the strategy for the company, and basically what it is you're a group of 5 student consultants to a real company, an international company that wants to, whether they want to expand their product line to the US or within their region, they come to you for assistance, and they're basically getting 5 MBAs to do all the work for them.
Right.
And for us, it's a great project because you're practicing everything you've learned and true consulting, and this is to professionals that at the end of the day, if everything goes well, some of these companies actually get invested in. So you get to practice everything you've learned, but at the same time you do it while you're still on campus. So if you make a mistake, you learn from it on campus rather than in the real world, and I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And you have many advisors, you've got other students that'll help you out, and like Howard said, the last month probably is the most amount of work, because that's when your 50 to 100 page business plan is due. That's when your presentations to investors and clients are due, and it gets to be a lot of work, and that's when you learn a lot about each other, because when you're up every night until midnight trying to hammer out this business plan and hammer out the presentation, you end up delegating to certain people to do certain tasks, because there's no way all of you can do it individually. So you end up delegating, saying, hey, you do this portion, I do this portion, and at the end of the day, it all comes together. I haven't seen anyone not finish what they had to do. It's just the group dynamics could be different, and you just have to make sure you pick the right members, because there are going to be a lot of stressful moments that you have to be able to get along with each other.
Yeah. And you actually hit on 2 pretty important points too. One is the safety, because it is an academic environment, so we do have people that we can go to ask, should we do something before we actually do it. But on the flip side, there's a real company behind it, and this is somebody's livelihood, and this is what was in the back of my mind the whole time, was that whatever we recommend for this company could very well determine whether they make payroll next month. So between those 2 dynamics, it made for a very interesting experience.
I think the one word that comes to my mind is adversity for Gap. It's just you're going to learn a lot
That's
about
the A in
yourself.
Gap, right?
Yeah, I think it is actually. You're going to learn about yourself. You're going to learn a lot about your group, and very importantly, you're going to learn a lot about managing a client, which is something that a lot of students have never had involvement with.
Oh, you had a fun one too.
Ours was interesting. So our project was around a New Zealand-based company that had developed smart fabric, smart technology. So a lot of the firms in Gap are technology-based. This one had some talks with a U.S.-based distributor and felt that the U.S. was the right route to go at this time. They had actually secured Series A financing as well. So they had cash. They had about 18 months or so left at their current burn rate. And ultimately, over the course of the 6 months, we dissected their business plan as what they had, recognized that there were some flaws in what the VC firm had saw. A few of our members traveled down to New Zealand. I stayed in the U.S. and did some primary research traveling in the U.S., specifically meeting with people in that industry. And what we found out with about 3 months to go, 2.5 months to go, is that there was not going to be a market for that product in the U.S., nor even in New Zealand, and they didn't even recognize that.
Yeah.
And I think when we had to sit down and talk with the CEO about that, that was very tough. And you're talking about, it's a company where that person's livelihood is based on this technology, this product, and you're telling them there's not a market for that. And we could have stopped right there. And we definitely leveraged the resources of Anderson. We met with a number of faculty members that have very specific expertise in intellectual property and technology, and also in organizational issues.
Right.
And I think at that point we could have finished our business plan, said don't come to the U.S., just focus and really try to generate as much cash as you can in the short term and close up shop. But we, as a group, we were actually able to find a whole different niche that they had never thought about. And based off all the interviews and hundreds of hours of interviews that were done overseas in the U.S., we actually were able to switch to the medical industry and find a use for this product that could help those with diabetes and help prevent ulcers and ulcerations, which is a huge problem in the U.S. As well as the world. And we put them in touch with the head of Dr. Scholl's for potential distribution opportunities, as well as researchers all throughout the U.S. that were more than willing to sit down and to use them as sort of beta sites to develop the technology. And I think that those experiences, my takeaway is that not just in Gap and whatever you're doing, when one door closes, another one is there to potentially walk through. You just need to be cognizant of the fact that sometimes things aren't going to go as planned. You just have to be versatile, and like I said, you have to be able to deal with adversity and shift. And I think the MBA experience and all the courses that we took up to that point gave us, I hate to use the word tools, but it gave us the tools to really understand just the direction, what needed to be done, what needed to be done financially, on the marketing side, on PR, additional R&D. And I think all of that and having that understanding, I don't think any of us have that understanding before Anderson. And so, from my perspective, that really is the master's thesis, if you will. And it should not be taken lightly, as Howard said, by any means. It's a beast. But at the end of the day, in December, when we're all done, we all sit around and you're going to be very proud of the job that you've done. The executives are going to be in from their respective countries, and I think again, it's just another bonding experience. It's just another great opportunity to learn about yourself, learn about others that are close to you, and continue to grow.
I thought you brought up something interesting there too. Is that a lot of the things that we brought to the project weren't necessarily things that we learned in the classroom. Such as telling a company's CEO bad news. Yeah. And that was learned on the fly, and that's a skill I think that is going to serve us very well going forward. Even though we didn't learn it out of the book or in a classroom, but it's something that we're going to take away out of the project too, because we also had to do the same thing, and it was a tough phone call to do. Imagine calling somebody long distance in Australia, telling them that what they spent the last 5 years working on suddenly isn't going to go anywhere. That's not a fun conversation, but it's one that has to be had. And we learn along the way how to do those things. And it's funny, I had an interview yesterday where I brought up Gap. Somebody had waved a business plan in front of me, and my first thought was, wow, our Gap plan was much better than that one. But then she said to me, said, look, I want you to produce a better plan than this, and I have the confidence that I can do it because we've done it, and that's what you walk away from this project with, that kind of confidence.